population is aging, many countries, including China, are confronted with serious issues around labor, healthcare, and pensions. Attitudes are changing towards the care of aging parents, but state and commercial pension systems and the senior care industry are expanding. So what happens when modern life clashes with traditional values? How can the country's pension systems and care facilities be improved to address the problem? And what can be learned from other countries' experiences? To discuss these issues and more, I'm very happy to be joined in the studio by Dr. Wei Nanzhi, Research Fellow of the Institute of American Studies of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and Professor Dong Ke-yong from Renmin University of China. We'll also speak to Lim Tai Wei, Research Fellow at the National University of Singapore, via Skype. That's our topic. This is a dialogue. I'm Yang Rui. Welcome to Dialogue. First of all, tell me briefly what is the general picture about the aging population in China? What does it mean for the future of the Chinese government and for consumers?
Okay. For China, we are come to the aging society is 2000 years, year 2000, because the standard is when the population age over 65, over 7% is the standard to come into the aging society. For the last 20 years, we are quite slow, from 7% to 12% next year. But for the next 30 years, the percentage of the people age over 65 will increase very fast, from the 12% to 30%. And then, that means in 2050, around 2050, where 30% of people will age is over 65. And then until 2100, is the end of this century, is old 30% people, aging people is 65, over 65, 30%. If you come to street, 3 people, 1 is over 65. That's the aging of China.
Dr. Wei, a lot has been done by the government, for example, to relax the birth control policy. Why didn't we see any increase in birth rate over the past few years?
I think because, first of all, I think because of the development, economic development. Throughout the world, you'll find if the country's economy is in high speed development, the women will refuse to have more children, because high development means that very high inflation. Everything will be very expensive to bring up a child. Secondly, because the increasing proportion of the women to take part in the labor market, because women want to keep its professional capacity. If they have more children, means that they should give up a lot of opportunity. And thirdly, I think because after 30 years of birth control policy in Chinese society, thinks that more children means heavy burden. Such kind of culture has changed, because throughout thousands of years, Chinese people refuse to have, want to have more children to keep the security after they become old. But nowadays, people think that have more children to benefit to my old security.
Professor Dong, that the GDP growth rate of the Chinese economy will be seriously undermined due to the serious drag on the growth financially, and will it cause any social unrest?
Yeah, I think for the aging society is some, the labor force will get smaller, not like today. And I just mentioned that if 1/3 of people age is over 65, and also the education people, most of them get educated, university educated. So that means from until 22, they come to the labor force. So the labor force will be only 1/3 of the population. So I think that will influence the economy increase, and because of the labor force.
Dr. Wei, what do you want to say about the social costs? We are already facing downward economic pressure. The economy is slowing down. Aging population becomes apparent. So financially, can authorities of China at different levels sustain the economy while taking good care of the elderly and the pensioners?
It's a very complicated issue, because nowadays, up till now, the financial capacity of Chinese government is very good. And up till now, the financial capacity of the social security of China is still very good. But long term, just as we have discussed, that the democratic structure will change rapidly, and the problem of aging population will become worsening. So maybe in the coming years, not very far away, we will face a very serious challenge of the financial difficulties. And I don't think it's a very, very difficult problem. Because why? Because now we find that we have such a huge population of old people, but we cannot only regard the old people as a burden. If our economy can have a structural transformation, to not only rely on very low-skilled labor. If we have more and more high-skilled labor, that means that even they're old, their experience, their knowledge is very useful to us, firstly. And secondly, if the old people, especially those in very rich cities, they are well off enough, they can also become very good consumers, not only depend on the young generation. So we should make use of such kind of complexity. And still, our economy is very good. Although it's not as high as before, the developing rate, but still very high all over the world. So we should now to deposit more. Not only the social security is owned by the state, but also about the occupational pension and the private pension.
To what degree, Professor Dong, do you think the Chinese authorities would decide to delay the age of retirement by, for example, 3 or 5 years?
I think, right now the retire age for China is quite young compared to the other countries in the world. Because right now, for women workers, usually they retire at 50. And for some white-collar women, 55. The average for the retirees in China, all of them, average is 55. It's too early for us, So we have to delay the age of retired. Yeah. So the policy, I think, we have to, because if you think about so many people will retire and so early and live longer, right now we can live at least 76, and so it's live so longer, and you have to delay your age of retirement. I think this is the policy we have to do, but slowly, quite slowly.
Let me cross over to our guest speaker who's standing by in Singapore, where founding father of this country, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, said a few years ago in one of his books that aging population could be one of the most serious challenges that this city nation faces. So let me ask Mr. Lim, what do you think of the measures that have been taken by the Singaporean government in coping with the issue of aging population? Your country is small in size, therefore does it mean we can hardly learn anything from Singapore?
Well, Singapore considers aging population and growing demographics to be a very serious issue. It has been a very serious issue since the 1980s, where 1980s and 1990s they started detecting that there's a slowdown in birth rate, and also people are living longer. So the combination of the slowdown in birth rate and living longer leads to an aging population. The government has tried all kinds of policies, including progressive policies. They include baby bonus, providing more help for daycare, providing help for working mothers, giving fathers paternity leave as well. Some of these measures contribute to making young couples very sort of facilitate their ability to have babies. Some are less successful, but nevertheless, the government has continued trying. And some of these measures are progressive by Asian standards. And so there's still quite a bit that one can learn from Singapore in this sense. Now, the other thing that Singapore is well known for is that it is a migrant society. That means it accepts a lot of migrants from overseas. And this migrant society also shows that in order to make it happen, multiculturalism is very important. And multiculturalism is something that Singapore is seen as being successful at, creating harmony between different races, different ethnicities, people with different religion, and to be able to socially engineer societies and neighborhoods to accept people of different creeds. And that's something that Singapore has done very successfully. One example is public housing. In public housing, they have quotas for people from different races. This ensures that there is no segregation of races. They mix them up in different public housing blocks. And this ensures that people can live and be exposed to different culture and live harmoniously with each other.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lim. Professor Dong, China is known for its hukou system, the household registration system. Do you think this has prevented the flow of labor force from underdeveloped region to more prosperous coastal areas, for example, so that migration itself, as Mr. Lim said, accurately and precisely, could somehow compensate for the aging population and vulnerabilities that have been brought about as such? So do you think the hukou needs to be reformed?
Yeah, of course, the hukou needs to be reformed, but actually hukou already reformed, because many young people from the rural areas already come to the urban, work here, stay here. So they can find a job here for the last 40 years, you know. It's not like the planning economy, then they can just stay in the rural. They already come to urban. The problem is they are come to the urban, but their children still stay in the rural.
The left behind the children in their millions.
Yeah.
And that's a very embarrassing issue for the government.
And also their parents stay in the rural. So in the rural areas, you can see only the old people and the children.
You're watching Dialogue with Dr. Wei Nanzhi, Research Fellow of the Institute of American Studies of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and Professor Dong Keyong from Renmin University of China. We've also talked to Lim Tai Wei, Research Fellow at the National University of Singapore, via Skype. Our issue and the discussion is the adverse situation of the aging population in China. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, Dr. Wei, what do you think of the issue that immigration can somehow compensate for the aging population?
Yes, because just you have said that the international experience and also some exception. As to the case of China, we do not have a long history of absorption migrant workers, because in the past 40 cases, so-called migrant workers means that those living in the rural area move to cities to work. But nowadays we find that there are a lot of new phenomena. If you pay a visit to Guangzhou and Yiwu, Zhejiang, you'll find numerous foreigners work there. And now also China has newly established a new bureau in charge of migrants, international migrants. So I think
we give them the green card. We let them enjoy permanent residence. So
in the
well-educated overseas guys could come and help China.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's look at another issue, Professor Dong. We have the home-based care and nursing homes, which means governments at different levels provide care for the elderly, pensioners and retirees. But taking people of my age as an example, we are facing a very embarrassing issue, very much like the situation of a popular television drama that tells the story of conflicts between the father and different children. They either choose to get naturalized in the United States, or they do some kind of job in China. So different conflicts occurred even between members of the same family and the same roof. People of my age face similar challenges. Home-based care, or we should let society take care of the elderly?
Okay. In my opinion, both we need. One, because for the old people, when you get old, at the beginning, you really don't need anyone to take care of you because you're quite healthy. But if their age is over 65, usually people get some problem, especially if they are lost their mind, lost their ability. If you only can stay home, for our generation, it's quite hard because we cannot find the home workers. Not like my father and mother. Right now they are over 60, over 95. We find the 2 home workers. Each one take themselves.
What do you mean by home workers? 保姆?
保姆, yeah, 保姆. Yeah, stay home with them, one by one. But for our generation, it's impossible.
Why?
Because, we have the family planning. Do you think the one child will take care of us?
We can have a labor import such as those from the Philippines, the Filipino
in Hong Kong, not only Philippines, home worker from Philippines, home worker already from Indonesia, but not enough. If the whole China we need, we will be 400 million people age over age 65. How they can find so many home workers? So if you have some problem, in my opinion, you have to leave your home to the home nurses. No problem.
No problem.
No. You cannot find people to help you. If you only yourself to stay at home, sometimes something happens, who can take care of you?
And have you ever studied the issue of digital technology, whether home nursing will become a smart kind of industry?
Yeah, but you're right. But we can get the help from the high tech. They can help us. Maybe one.
The use of robots.
Yeah.
Is that your point?
To help them. For example, my father and mother get 2, but maybe that time only 1 people and have some high tech to have each people can take care of 3 or 4 for old people in the home in the nurse care or something like that.
Dr. Wei, according to research by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, China's main state pension fund will run out of money by 2035. How much of a concern is this for the current labor force, and how will individual commercial pension insurance develop in the future?
Yeah, it's a very serious problem. As Professor Dong has said, because now the life expectancy is very long in China, but the working age also increased. The working expectancy is too short,
Oh, by the way, what was the average lifespan back in the year 1949 when China was founded?
Below 40.
A little bit more than 40.
Yeah, below 40. But now it's 76.
76?
Yeah.
This is amazing. This
is
absolutely remarkable.
It's a great social progress. But still, we keep the retirement system which stipulated in early 1950s. It's incredible, People live long and study long, but do not work long. So we should change our retirement system to make our Social Security financially more sustainable.
Have you ever done any survey of those who polled? What are the replies from most of them? Do they prefer to work longer, or they prefer to retire early?
This depends on our pension system. In China, we already have the 3-pillar system already. For the first, what means 3 pillars is the idea to come from World Bank.
The World Bank.
World Bank. In 1994, there is a report talk about the system, the 3 pillars. Why 3 pillars? The basic pension from government, and the second pillar from the enterprises, third pillar from your individual. There's 3-pillar system already. We already set up these 3 pillars. The question you are asked is about the first pillar, state pension. For the state pension, it's true. If everything is not changed, we will use all of the money until 2035. But we can change something. You just mentioned we can delay the retire age. If we delay 1 year, that means you contribute 1 year and you get the benefit short 1 year, right? 1 year contribute, 1 year leave for get the benefit. So we can delay the age of the retired. Also, we can get more people join that program. For example, immigration workers, the workers from farmers come to the city, they can join this program. Then more people join this program, then we get more contribution. right? Also, we can get the financial support from the government. It's true. For last 20 years, the government contributed a lot, subsidized the system a lot. So something will be changed. So don't worry. The state pension will be there. You can get it. But it's a basic one. Enough for you to get the food. You can get some, transportation to bus. But if you want to drive a car, if you want to go abroad, something like that, your better life for your retired, you have to join the second pillar and the third pillar. That means you have to reserve the money for yourself earlier. So that's why the three pillar system.
What about the issue of 以房养老? I mean, deposit your property for insurance so that one day you can sell your properties. Many people in first-tier cities have multiple properties. It's easy for them to decide to make up their mind and sell one of the properties so that easily they could use the return of the property sale and deposits as an insurance. What do you think of this idea?
Yeah, this problem is linked to the so-called the social justice. You know why? Because in big cities, the price of apartment is very high. So the 以房养老 is how to say, it's very useful. But if you go to the small cities, small towns, the price of apartment is very low. How can people sell their owning apartment and to go to the nursery for only maybe 1 or 2, 3 years is not enough. So we should just make a balance between the efficiency and equality. That means the state should show the more responsibility to keep the basic pension system sustainable, to ensure the people's basic needs. And others, if you want to have a better life, you can say you are very expensive apartment and so on.
Yes, size does matter. China has a sizable population of up to 1.4 billion. That's indeed a lot. So many politicians, journalists outside China could hardly imagine the adversity of the situation and so difficult to run this country of a big population. Let me cross over to Mr. Lim, commentator standing by in Singapore. Mr. Lim, to what degree do you think people in Singapore or neighboring countries could feel the impact of aging population in China? Is it more of an opportunity or bad news for an economy like city nation Singapore, who recently decided to establish the land-sea trade corridor with Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, so that the whole regional prosperity would be stimulated as a result of a third mega project other than that in Suzhou and Chongqing. Tell me briefly the impact of our aging population.
Because the Chinese consumption market is so large that while there is an aging population, and generally studies show that aging populations tend to consume less, but because the base population is so large, I think the impact, while there may be impact, it may be limited, because the Chinese market, the size is so big, it can accommodate consumption of every sort. Traditionally speaking, in societies that are aging, there are always opportunities for industries that cater to what is called the silver industry. For example, elderly care. There will be a boom in elderly care, pharmaceuticals, and also even tourism that caters to seniors. All these will show a boom for many companies that are able to capitalize on opportunities like this in either the Belt and Road Initiative exchanges between Southeast Asia and China, Singapore and China, or in other schemes where there are trade and commerce and services between China and Singapore. So, for example, the tourism industry would retool itself to cater to possibly larger numbers of the senior tourists that are coming, to understand their interests, the silver tourism's interests from China in places in Southeast Asia. They would accommodate such new developments and accommodate the interests of such tourists. Of course, pharmaceuticals, even robotics, there may be a boom. There are many robots that are already commercially available that can cater to elderly care, and robots that help Alzheimer's patients or what is called assistive robots, robots that help us in our daily lives, coping with our daily activities, are already starting to be made commercially available. There's a robot, for example, that's called Paro, that provides companionship to senior citizens. So there will be an accommodation. It's definitely an opportunity for many sectors that are willing to consider retooling themselves to cater to this silver tourism. And it also remains a very boom for pharmaceuticals that will make medicines, that will make medical equipment, that will make scanning machines to look at the health checkups of elderly
silver
patients.
industry or silver tourism. Thank you very much, Mr. Lin Tai-Wei from Singapore. Very quickly, all want to live longer, for sure. We could either enjoy the company of an animal, such as a cat or a dog, to alleviate the loneliness, or we have the use of robots, artificial intelligence. Which way do you think is likely to be the easy solution when we get old? The issue of loneliness is a killer disease for those who would hardly enjoy the luxury of having their children around the clock, always available, ready to reach out and help. It's a luxury, basically, for the one-child family. And therefore, what do you think of the misery of being lonely for the elderly?
I think it's quite hard for our generation in the future. And it's true, it's true. So then we need we need to get together. We need to one generation of the same age, we can get together, we know each other, and we are living together, some kind of the facilities already. This is one of the industry, I think. This is one industry will happen in China.
So Professor Dong says this is more of an opportunity than a challenge for the silver industry. What do you think of, the challenges of the silver industry and the issue of loneliness?
Yeah, I agree with Professor Dong, because I just gave birth to my second child last year. I think why I decided to give birth to a second child, because I don't want to become so lonely when I be old. And I think maybe in the future, robots will be very important to my generation, because my generation can accept that. But nowadays I find also another very good technology is important for the young people, old people to find their pleasure is WeChat. As to my parents, they use WeChat, and they use WeChat to establish the cooperation, the teamwork, a lot of things. They're very happy.
That's indeed a world of virtuality and a world of virtual pleasures for the elderly. Catch you next time. Goodbye.